the innate ability to heal themselves or heal itself. We just need to give it, the right tools for sure. Maybe before I jump into the applied neurocellular therapy, I should maybe just mention that's how I got, after I got better, I was introduced to the Four Winds, Alberto Villoldo, and a bit of the, I guess, medicine men and women from the Andes, so in Peru and Chile. Right. So I am what I would call a professionally trained shaman.
So excited to have you on, Simone, and I cannot wait to start this conversation because I know a lot of my clients and a lot of my listeners will need to know this information because you are a bottle of information. So why don't we go ahead and start? I know that you are in the holistic business. And everybody has a story to tell. Everybody starts somewhere, and it's like, you're going through life and you think everything's going well, and then something happens and it changes your direction. So tell us what your story is and how it changed your direction.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, hi, Michelle. So great to be on your show. And yeah, you're right. Stories is one thing, but life experience, comes with it as well. And I love when we can combine stories into more inspirational and transformational, tidbits of information that other people can really use to their advantage. So, listen, I have been spending almost 30 years in corporate America, doing what you do. You kind of have career and you move up the ladder. And I came down with what I would call my first health crisis back in 2015. It started, and that really was a moment in time to reevaluate my entire life. I was married at the time, raising my kids. As I said, successful job, but I found myself completely bedridden. So I was inflamed. I couldn't open my hands out of my own free will. Had to do water aerobics in the morning. And nobody could figure out what was going on with me. That was probably the most frustrating part. So we're going to talk a little bit about mystery illnesses and autoimmune and all that, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are going through the same thing. And in essence, the frustration that I have also a little bit with our medical system here in the US of not really understanding what is happening, right? So in my case, I had to travel all the way to Germany to be properly diagnosed. So, I was at the top hospital here in the US, and I had to go see a rheumatologist, and, here's what your diagnosis is, and here's the pill that, the magic pill you're supposed to be taking. But I have to say, I'm so thankful for the doctor at the time, because he made one key comment, and he goes, well, one thing I want you to do before you start taking this medication is I want you to go see an ophthalmologist, because you could go blind. And I go, okay, well, my eyes are the only thing that's working right now. I had 20/20 vision and everything else wasn't working. So I'm like, this doesn't sound like something that I would want to do. So, but, and then I found a clinic in Switzerland that properly diagnosed me. So in a lot of cases, for those of you with autoimmune out there listening, it has usually some kind of a heavy metal component to it. It can also have some toxicity from, environmental toxins such as, cleaning supplies, mold, and or also, toxicity that we just take in through food. And in my case, I had both of those. So I had a heavy metal toxicity. I had an environmental toxins that needed to be cleaned up, and I had a food allergy. And so, of course, it takes some time, right? It is not something that you can just wave a wand and be done with it. But I'm not taking any medication at all. So I really was healing myself by just cleaning up my diet and having, the tools. Unfortunately, I had to do this all in Germany. And that's, as I said, the frustration about the medical system here in the US that, unless you have a really awesome integrative doctors and they're out there, Western medicine in that case really is not doing a great job.
Right. Understandable. And, and it's so interesting because when you were talking about the metals in your body, I worked with children with autism.
Yep.
and back in the 90s, and it was really popular back then to go get some type of mud therapy because the particular mud that they were using would actually, soak in all the environmental toxins because
Yep.
children with autism are so sensitive to that.
Yep.
So good for you, though, for reaching out and taking control over your own health. And I know right now it is it's beginning to become popular that people are realizing that they can heal themselves. And I know that, and I do want to talk to you about that neurocellular therapy has
Yep.
something to do with it as well. Can you kind of go into that type of therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just to confirm that,
Yeah.
our bodies have the innate ability to heal themselves or heal
Mhm.
itself. We just need to give it, the right tools for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe before I jump into the applied neurocellular
Oh, yeah.
therapy, I should maybe just mention that's how I got. After I got better, I was introduced to the Four Winds, Alberto Violdo, and a bit of the I guess medicine men and women
Mhm.
from the Andes, so in Peru and
Right.
Chile. So I am a what I would call a professionally trained shaman, hence the
Yay!
rocket
I love
shaman. Maybe
it.
we'll talk a
I
little bit
lo-
about that. And I really got into the what I would call alternate healing modalities, right? So that there
Mhm.
is more between space and time that we can do to support the healing of the body, right?
Right.
So on one hand, it's the physical symptoms that show up. But I always would ask the question, how is this happening for me? Not why is this happening to me, but for me, and what is happening kind of on the outset of all of that. So it could be that you have some karmic issues that you're resolving, so things that you have in past lives. It could be that you
Mhm.
have generational things that are going on. It could be traumas that you experience. I mean, we most of us have a traumatic birth, right? If you think
Mhm.
about whether you're through C-section or even if you're in my age group, they took us out and the first thing that happened, they smacked our bottom so we would cry. And I had 10 years of just trauma from that. Anyway, I
Oh,
digress. um,
oh my
but
goodness.
I'm mentioning this, right, because the healing modality
Mhm.
that I started to learn, and I saw that there are things that you can literally remove out of people's bodies and aura and energy field to make them better. And as I was seeing clients, I had three types of clients. I have the once and done miraculous healings. I have the what happens more often. You have to just stay at it, and layers after layers after layers that you start to get into. And then the most peculiar one is the one where it doesn't work at all. And I was curious about that. Why doesn't it work? Right. So, of course, the ego comes in a little bit of like, you want to make sure that people get better. And what I realized was that some folks have maybe some skepticism, right? And or I've tried everything already, didn't work. Well, I'm going to go see this guy, or I'm going to go see that guy, or this woman, and if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't, or if it doesn't help, it doesn't hurt. And I didn't really want to accept that fact, right? But the subconscious of someone coming on my table and go, oh, I don't know whether this is going to work. Um, and I needed to figure out something to kind of change and alter their state of mind, if you will, in a safe way. And there's a lot of talk about psilocybin, and I guess drug-induced therapies as well. So there's a lot of clinical studies. So after Nixon, everything was nixed, no pun intended, and shut down. And so we just now are kind of in this research and clinical studies that a lot of clinics are doing on psychedelics, and can this help in the healing state of things. So, I'm not a doctor. Plus, psilocybin is still a Schedule One under U.S. law, so it's illegal in most states.
Mhm.
And I needed to find another way of inducing kind of a lucid state so that I could go a little deeper in. And so that's where the applied neurocellular therapy comes in. It's
Oh,
really nothing more than modern technology meets ancient wisdom.
wow.
And particularly in this case, I use a hypnagogic lamp called the Lucia number 3, and it works with LED and stroboscope that penetrates the pineal gland and ultimately activates all of your brainwaves, so the alpha, beta, theta, and delta waves. And
Wow.
what is interesting about it is, so it's picture it as kind of an LSD trip without drugs.
Oh,
So
right.
you see multitudes of colors, and it kind of induces this kind of trance-like state, and that seems to almost override the subconscious long enough for me to then
Mhm.
go in and remove whatever needs to be removed. And that's been really fascinating to see what is possible again when we kind of override the subconscious mind and start healing, to take place in the body.
Okay, let me ask you a question. When you said I remove what needs to be removed. Okay,
Yeah.
so how do you do that? What does that look like?
So there can be physical pain, right? That can
Mhm.
be dislodged, but pain also can be in a form of energy. Now, this is a little bit, and we're going to go into a little bit of the woo-woo stuff, right?
Yeah,
Of
absolutely.
what is pain? What is the feeling?
Mhm.
And I see it in the form of gas clouds. I see it in the form of invisible, visible matter, so to speak.
Mhm.
So I would, and when I say remove it, right? So it is literally about grabbing that pain
Mhm.
cloud
Okay.
of sorts and moving it out and transforming it. But it can also be a traumatic event that happened to someone,
Right.
right? That I detect as part of why someone is sick, or why do you have something that is going on in your back, or with something else. So in and again, we're going a little bit into the maybe the woo woo stuff, but in the indigenous healing modalities, and this is stuff that's been around for thousands of years, right?
Yes.
We know that we
Yes.
can work backwards in time and forwards in time, and we can really get to the root of what makes someone sick in the first place. And that's really ultimately what's happening, and it's very safe. So I work
Oh,
with
yeah.
my hands most of the time.
Okay.
I work with some crystals, but there isn't any, like, people are fully closed, and it's not painful. It's just, most people can see that and feel that, whoa, what just happened? Something just left my body.
Right. Right. Yeah, and let me ask you one more question about that. So when you remove it, like you said, it looks like a cloud and you're removing it with your energy as well. What do you do with that cloud? I mean, do you release it into the universe or what do you do with it?
It depends. Yeah, it's a great
Okay.
question.
Okay.
Most cases, I burn it, so
Okay.
it's candle.
Yeah.
Sometimes I throw it in salt water
Okay.
and get it out. It depends on the type of energy that's there, but
Right.
it's a great question. But yes, it is a removal and being gone.
Okay.
But it's also important to really apply energetic hygiene. So it's almost like you perform, that's why for people that want to go on my website, so I talk about aura surgery, and it is a type of
Yeah.
surgery. So I got to make sure that I am clean and sanitized, and so this
Right.
energy doesn't really linger around, so that the next person who's on my table is safe, and something that doesn't inadvertently then attach themselves to the next person
Oh,
that's laying
wow.
down.
I love how you explain that because I would have never thought about it. But you do have to clean out that energy and you need to make sure that you have pure energy when you're working with somebody else. So
Yeah,
let's
that's
go.
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So I've never heard that said that before, but it makes total sense. This is a picture of you working with a client. And what I
Right.
found very interesting, and I see that there's a pyramid behind you, but you
Yeah,
with the chakras, the different chakras, what you're doing is you're using pyramids.
that's right. Yeah.
So can you
Yeah. It's
explain why you do that?
Yeah, it's one of the modalities that is there. But maybe before I explain that,
Oh, yeah.
um, I think it might be important, right? We sometimes go into rooms or into houses and we go, "Ooh, it doesn't feel good in here." We can't really
Right.
explain it, right? But that's kind of it when we talk about if a room and or a practitioner is energetically clean, it should feel
Mhm.
good. You shouldn't feel anything like in terms of this negative energy. But yes, so that's
True.
correct. So this is
Yeah.
just an example of what a healing session can look like. So this is a chakra rebalancing where I really look at all of the different chakras, and the chakras, and I work with the seven main chakras. There's many more, but most of
Mhm.
people that do yoga and breath work are at least familiar with with the seven. And it is important that they really all work um, by itself, but also helping support the other energy centers as well. So if they're all, I call them spinning properly, and if they're
Mhm.
clean, that helps. So the pyramid itself, it's an orgonate or an orgonite pyramid. So that there is copper in there, there's crystals in there. And in this particular case, they kind of, I guess you could call it mulch the energy, right? It just helps me as I'm working to kind of supercharge, everything. Plus, they're works of art. They're
Oh,
made by
yeah.
a good friend of mine. These are all individual handmade, and love the energy of it.
Absolutely. It almost, magnifies the energy, instead of
Yeah.
just using the rocks, it has so many more elements in that. So how do you know that, you were talking about healing, people's energy with the black cloud and removing certain types of energy. How do you know when the chakras are not lined? And how do you know which one is needing to be healed, I guess you could say, or moved
Yeah.
with more light energy?
Yeah, yeah. Um, there are different tools that you can use. Some people use a pendulum. I use a tensor.
Mhm.
By now, for me, it's because I have, I guess, the gift of clairvoyance and
Oh,
claircognizance,
yeah.
and we'll talk about this in a second. I think
Yeah, absolutely.
I know what's happening. So the claircognizance really is the gift of knowing, right?
Mhm,
So someone can come in and they tell me that they have, you know, this physical symptom, and as I'm checking their chakras, I already know that there is some traumatic event that happened in their life that is actually has manifested itself in that particular
mhm,
chakra, and that's a gift. I mean, we all have it. It's just something that you need to train and work towards. But in most cases, as I'm kind of hovering with my hand above it, I can already sense where
mhm.
the imbalances are taking place. But yes, you can also use additional tools such as a pendulum.
Hmm. So, all right. So let's talk about your clairs because
Yeah.
I'm always interested. When did you know that you had that intuitiveness?
Early on, so I mentioned before that I was attending this Grow a New Body with Alberto Violdo, and he's one that is really, I guess he calls himself a bit of the neo shaman that brought all this knowledge back into the Western culture. Um, at the end of this week, we had a ceremony to just say thanks, and I found myself sitting on top of this castle ruin in I think we were in Germany and overlooking France and Switzerland, so right there on that corner of those three countries. And I had my hand up, and I could sense energy in my hand for the first time. It was really
Right.
subtle. It was like a water hose or so that hit it, and
Mhm.
it startled me because it was like nothing I had ever experienced before. And as I started to explore that, so that was my first, I guess, sense that was awakened. So
Okay.
hence why I work a lot with my hands and I can feel things.
Right.
But then these clairs started to pop in gradually over time. So uh, um, I guess the clairvoyant part was I see, I guess, gas clouds. It's probably the best
Yes.
way to say it.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
see energy, and the best way to explain it to someone is I've had uh, quite a few women with thyroid issues, and one of the first ones where it started to happen is as I was working with the thyroid, it was like black smoke coming out. So it's almost like for those Catholics amongst you, when the new pope is elected and the Sistine Chapel, the black smoke come out. We
Oh
don't
yeah.
have a new pope
Oh
yet.
yeah.
That's kind of like you have to, and then
Yeah.
black smoke kind of turned into gray smoke, into white smoke, into clear, and then I knew
Yeah.
things were good. And and as they, she went into her routine exams, like they couldn't actually detect anything wrong with her thyroid afterwards. But that's the best way to say there's other people that
Mm.
see things and beings. For me, the clairvoyance, that's kind of how it manifested.
Now, let me ask you this question. Okay. So, when you were younger, all right, because a lot of people are not awakened to their abilities until they get older. Like they're like, oh, I do have something, like what you're talking about. They start coming on really strong. But when you were younger, Could you feel the energy around you? Could you feel things?
Yeah, so I have seen an angel when I was 4.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And we talked about that kids up until the age of 6 actually have all these gifts with them, but
Mhm.
they start to forget, right? So the real
Right.
world comes in. And in my case, I excitedly started to share that with other adults, and I was told, "Yeah, stupid child doesn't exist. You can't see an angel." And I believe I shut it down myself. I
Right.
had it, but it didn't feel safe for me to talk about it.
Mhm.
And I also believe my health crisis was a wake up call in that sense to really find my purpose. Right when you think about, I'm in corporate America, I'm married, I'm kind of just going through the motions, and I'm just doing what we're told.
Mhm.
That event, although painful and lot of personal shadow work I had to go through, and medical work and all that. But I'm living my passion, right? I woke up because I wasn't
Yeah.
doing what I'm meant to be doing in this world, and I think for a lot of us, when we're not in congruence with our life's purpose, some of these illnesses could show up as a wake up call to say, "Hey, pay attention. Are you really doing what you're
Absolutely.
supposed to be doing?" Right? And so in my case, that was where all these gifts started to come back and awakening.
I,
Again,
I want to go back to this picture
yeah,
because look in the background. There's an angel in that's like guardian angel with kids in front, and I absolutely love this painting. And it's a common picture, but that kind of is that why that's back there is because of you see remembering that angel.
yeah, absolutely. I work with angelic energies and with
Mhm.
angels, and then I would believe the birds in our lives and are really kind of a sign from above. Whenever you find a feather, I believe
Oh,
that
yeah.
it's a sign from an angel. So yeah, I love that. I love that painting too. That's why we picked it for this particular shot when we took the pictures.
Yeah, you had to include an angel. I love it, I love it. Alright, so so now you've got the name. You're being called the Rocket Shaman. Absolutely love that name. So tell me, how did you get that name, and where are you going in your business now?
Yeah, great, great. Yeah, it's a fun name, isn't it? We have to have some humor every once in a while. Honestly, so my brother is also a trained shaman, and he's been working in the esoteric world probably, gosh, from the time he was 12 or 13. And he's a little bit of a door opener, I would call it. And he actually is the one that called me that, or in passing to somebody else is like, oh, he took off like a rocket. He's kind of the rocket shaman. And the reason being is, right, if you think about
Mhm.
this all happened in 2015, and then my formal training started in 2017. So I've only been doing this in this lifetime for the last 7 years. And I've been blessed to train with wonderful medicine men and medicine women from around the globe, and being initiated in really the healing arts of all of that. And so it kind of stuck with the Rocket Shaman. So there will be a new website coming out here in the next 10 days or so, therocketshaman.com. So because of all the podcasts that I've been recording, I've been asked, where can I come see you? And obviously I'm here in Pennsylvania. And although things can be done remote, there's always something, there's a sacred moment. And that's why I love this picture that you showed as well. I love to create kind of a safe container, safe space for people to heal. And so I'm going to launch this year the Rocket Shaman Wellness Retreats. We will have retreats in Ireland. We'll have retreats in
Mhm.
South Africa. We will have retreats most likely here in the US as well. And it's really about, taking a reset. I call it the rocket reset. And you learn about what, healthy foods, we're talking about breath work. There will be the applied neurocellular therapy, and really, have a reset to get back to your optimal health. And so that's going to be fabulous programs to launch. And
Yeah.
then next to that, I have my own private practice, but I'm looking to expand that. I really truly feel like that we need to change the way we think about healthcare in America. And one project that I'm working on is around an autoimmune clinic and establishing better protocols to actually diagnose someone correctly the first
Right.
time around and start to influence, even our insurance companies and our medical system to kind of say, hey, this isn't just crazy stuff that we can actually
Mhm.
diagnose properly the first time around, rather than this run around.
Absolutely. I love it. Love
Yeah,
it,
and
love
then
it.
last thing is I'm working on my own health and wellness software as a service platform. I want to equip employers in the U.S. to actually provide better benefits as well. So not just your typical medical, dental, and vision care benefits, but also really leaning into keeping people healthy and or getting people healthy. And I believe by doing so, you will create more loyal employees and ultimately drive down your healthcare cost as a company. So more to come.
Oh, I love it. And you know what, Simone, I think it's really important to bring out here. I know that you were in the corporate world for many, many years. Okay.
Have
But
been.
look at what skills that you were taught so that you could carry on this healing modality and know how to market it and know how to get it out there.
That's right.
So, so I think God gives us that opportunity, even though we're going, it doesn't work for me anymore, but you're still using it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So do
Well said.
people in your corporate business, do they know what you do?
Yes, it
Okay.
is actually so funny. I think we all sometimes have this piece of paper where you think, ah, well, people only knew, or or people, what will people think of us if,
Right.
So I think the scary moment for me was to put, when I started getting my Reiki certification. That's how I started, right after that Grow a New Body seminar. So putting Reiki Master on my LinkedIn profile, I thought the world was going to come to an end, because there's a little bit of like, oh my gosh, people think I'm completely nuts, and the most beautiful thing happened. Nothing. In the contrary, it started to have people were interested, and people are people, right? I mean, just
Right.
because you're in corporate world, I think we're all curious beings, and yeah, it was amazing. And so
Right.
I also felt like I needed to create a bit of a bridge between the corporate world versus what I do, right? So because we can go very, very woo woo.
Right.
I mentioned that a couple of times. I need to find a better term for it, but
No.
there is quite a there's a lot of people out there that are burned out, from the
Mhm.
job, that are not sure where the next step that they have to do, life purpose, right?
Right.
Especially after COVID. And so I'm really looking to build this bridge to to corporate executives out there that may not admit that they're struggling, but having a safe place to actually talk about with someone that has been there, has gone through it, and really ultimately tried to heal people on a physical, emotional, and spiritual level.
Right. Oh, I love it. And I was going to say a lot of corporate people need it because they tend to be those type A personalities
There's a
that
lot,
they
a
need
lot
to
out
have
there.
something self-care into their world. Okay, are you ready for the last question?
I am.
All
I think
right.
so.
Depending on what it is, right?
That's right. Yeah, we joked about this. Will be really fun to see what the
See what
universe has in store
lands.
for me.
And it's so interesting because it does surprise me a little bit. Oh my gosh. Okay. This is
Oh,
interesting.
look at that
See,
invention!
yeah, invention keeps coming up and I wonder why. And it keeps going to so I guess that's an important question for all of us to answer right now. So if you were going to invent something,
Yeah.
what would you invent and why?
Well, I guess the best example is I invented the applied neurocellular therapy, right? So
Right.
this isn't anybody else that's doing it in terms of combining modern technology with ancient wisdom. So for me, and maybe on top of that, for those of you that remember it now, I'm gonna probably mess this up. I think it is Star Trek with Enterprise. Is that right?
Yes.
Ah,
Yes. Yes. I think that's it. Yeah.
where
Yeah,
the
Star Trek
doctor had
Enterprise. Yeah.
this like bzzz, like this scanner kind of thing, and
Yes.
then
The
you
teleporter?
can imagine. I would love to invent that, right? Wouldn't it be great when you can just kind of like go, do a scanner and then like, okay, this is what's going on, punch in a number and like, okay, you're good to go. That'd be
Oh,
fun.
I hope so. Wouldn't that be fun though? Absolutely. We went from horses to cars to airplanes, so maybe that's next.
There you go.
So where can everybody reach you? Where is your favorite place for them to go?
Probably the best way would be to go on my website, so www.simonluthi.com,
Okay.
simonluthi.com. There's a contact form in there. My phone number is there as well. Text me or send me a contact form, and or send me an email at simone@simonluthi.com.
Mhm.
And happy to help.
Love it. Everybody has their way, their favorite social media way to be reached. Now, I'm going to let you leave and do the inspirational message. Any type of inspirational message that you want to give anybody for this week for them to work on spiritually or whatever that you feel like you want to tell everybody that's listening.
Love it. I would say that, I could heal myself and so can you. It's just a matter of actually tuning in. And I love these three words. And these three words really for me have power. And I use them as learn, love, heal. So the first step really is learning of, what's going on with you and what's not in congruence. And then the hardest one on love is most of us need to learn to love ourselves again, right? And not beat ourselves up. And then the combination of the learning with knowledge and self-love really turns into the healing aspect of it. So in all of my Rocket Reset retreats, I do talk about that. So about learn, love, and heal.
I love it. All right, everybody, you heard it here. And if you really like this episode, please share with somebody, especially somebody who is going through, some type of illness or sickness, and they need to hear this message. Please share with them. And I will see you next week. All right. Goodbye, everybody.